Hello and welcome to Hare Investigations. I'm your host, Anna Rucco. Wapiti Reservation and how it connects to Fort Riggs. Wapiti Reservation. Wapiti Reservation is a Native American reservation in Red Dead Redemption 2 and Red Dead Online, located in the Grizzlies East region of the Abarino Territory. Wapiti is a Native American word for the North American elk. The elk represents dignity, power, inner strength, and passion. The word Wapiti translates to white rump in English, so the name of the reservation is White Rump Reservation. The Wapiti tribe originally roamed the heartlands before they were forcibly relocated to the Wapiti Reservation in Abarino by settlers moving west, as well as the American government. The reservation land, however, was rocky and not suitable for farming. The heartlands, of course, were home to the Plains Indians, which is also the same Native Americans that were linked to the Native American burial grounds. Now, in order to fully understand the significance of Wapiti, we must realize that Wapiti is a dynamic location in RDR2 and online. Depending on what year it is and what time in that year, the location changes. So let's take a look at the timeline. The dates in white are when you would normally be able to interact with the Wapiti tribe and the reservation. So you've got RDR2 online, which is 1898. You've got Chapter 4, 1899. Chapter 6, late 1899. And then RDR2 Epilogue, which is 1907. We will start in RDR Online, which is 1898. This is 1 year before the events of Story Mode. In 1898, when you visit the reservation, you'll find it deserted except for a few wooden houses, random garbage, and the remains of a few teepees. However, there is an interesting find located at the hitching post. You can find the following items at the hitching post: a case of gelatin, a tub of horseshoes, a bucket of horse oats, and a U.S. Army payroll bag. This would mean the Native Americans you encounter in story mode had not yet arrived at the reservation. However, the U.S. Army had already been preparing the location or even had been staying here since the wooden houses are already here. The houses do have flickering lights inside during the nighttime, so this may be the soldiers that are preparing the location. In early to mid-1899, in story mode, we know that Arthur and the Vanderlyn gang have left Coulter and are traveling to Horseshoe Overlook. This is the first time you see the Native Americans seated on horses on a cliff watching you. Mid-1899. Rains fall, eagle flies, and Peta can be seen observing the Vanderlyn gang as they leave the mountain coming from Coulter on their journey towards Horseshoe Overlook. The first interaction you have with the Native Americans is in Chapter 4. This is mid to late 1899 in St. Denis. The first interaction you have with the Native Americans is during Chapter 4 with the mission American Fathers. This mission starts out as a stranger mission in St. Denis, but turns into a main mission. Evelyn Miller will be standing outside the police station with two Native Americans, Rain Falls and his son Eagle Flies. They were two of the three Native Americans that were watching you from the cliff earlier in the story. Once you complete the missions American Fathers 1 and American Fathers 2, you can now enter the Wapiti Reservation without the Native Americans being hostile towards you. Native Americans in the settlement will often remark on the unusual presence of a white man if you visit the settlement before doing missions for rainfalls. They may also be openly hostile to your presence and tell you to leave, although they will never attack you. Once you have done the two missions for rainfalls and eagle flies, the Native Americans will greet you and generally be more friendly. In Chapter 6, the Native Americans become part of the main storyline, and it's your first chance to travel to the reservation as part of the story. These events place the Native Americans at the reservation till late 1899. Although you can visit the reservation at any time, Chapter 6 is when the story takes you there. This is the time frame we'll be using for our investigation. Wapiti Reservation, mid to late 1899. During Chapter 6 is when the majority of your interactions with the Native Americans of Wapiti happens. By the end of the missions, they will be leaving to head north. An important clue is found during the mission for the Native Americans also. During conversations, when Rainfall speaks a language other than English, the closed caption references this as Lakota. The Wapiti tribe is not based on any single real-world tribe, but instead is a composite of Native American groups, mostly from the Plains and Rocky Mountain regions. This lines up with my research at other locations so far. Now let's take a look at the Native American items we find around the reservation. Various Native American woven jars can be found around the area. Now these items look very familiar. The jars located at Wapiti Reservation perfectly match the jars found at Fort Riggs. This links the Native Americans held at Fort Riggs to the tribe currently living at Wapiti Reservation. Now these two pieces are interesting. Stretching animal skins inside of rings to dry and tan is a common practice. Now where have I come across this before? A full wolf skin can be found laying outside by a teepee. Now we know that wolves are significant to the Native Americans. At the Native American burial grounds, you will often be attacked by packs of wolves. Another item I know I have seen somewhere before. At the end of the year, the Indians were forced to flee north with the help of Charles Smith following the attack on the oil fields. The efforts of the Wapiti tribe to escape to Canada reflect the historical attempts of many tribes and bands at the end of the 19th century. The best known is the Nez Perce, led by Chief Joseph, as well as the Lakota groups led by Sitting Bull. In the epilogue, you can travel to the reservation as John Marston, but you find it empty and abandoned. Wapiti Reservation in the epilogue, 1907. During the epilogue, you play as John Marston and can travel to Wapiti Reservation. You can find an old, disused wooden oil pump at the north end. This directly reflects the efforts by Arthur to stop Leviticus Cornwall from drilling for oil on the reservation. Since the site is abandoned, we can safely say that the oil found here is minimal to none. A newspaper article in the Blackwater Ledger also supports this. Newspaper article from 1907. Newspapers, Blackwater Ledger, number 72. Article, Pump Jack Sits Silent. No oil found at Wapiti. Investigators allege fraud. The oil reserves discovered on land near the Wapiti Indian Reservation in 1899 have turned up dry, and all drilling operations have ceased and packed up. There were high hopes for the location following a detailed explanation by the Leland Oil Development Company on behalf of Cornwall Kerosene and Tar, and a number of petroleum outfits have sought to develop it into a well-paying field. Workers flocked to the area in anticipation of jobs that would pay as much as 22 cents an hour. Companies sank well after well, coming up empty with only a minuscule amount of oil being found, not enough to keep operations running. The tribe at the reservation went on the run after a series of attacks on the army, culminating in a bloody battle at the Cornwall Kerosene and Tar Factory around the time news of the oil discovery became known. Many members of the tribe were gunned down in Wyoming, and a few members are believed to have escaped into Canada. It is unknown what will happen to the Indian reservation land moving forward, as there are no Indians in the area to relocate there currently. Now, if you notice in the article, I highlighted the word Wyoming and Canada. The country of Canada is referenced within the game world, but Wyoming does not exist. So this mentioning of a real-life state in the United States is significant. Wapiti is also the name of an unincorporated community in Park County, Wyoming. The Grizzlies East region shares similarities with northwestern Wyoming, where Park County is located. So this leads us to the conclusion that Wapiti Reservation is Wapiti, Wyoming. So the Indians would have been able to travel straight north across Montana into Canada. In the epilogue, the player can encounter Native Americans who are observing them from out of in-game bounds. They can be seen at the Mexican side of Manteche Falls or near the waterfall at the lower Montana River. So with the items found at the 3 locations so far, the Native American burial ground, Fort Riggs, and now Wapiti Reservation. I believe the Native Americans that once roamed the heartlands and used the burial site were also the ones that were held at Fort Riggs and then relocated to the Wapiti Reservation. After being moved to the reservation, oil was thought to be on the land. This caused many broken treaties and fighting between the U.S. government and the Wapiti tribe. The result of this caused the Native Americans to flee north to Canada as reported in the newspapers. But now if the Native Americans from Wapiti traveled north, why are there now Native Americans in the southwestern area of the map? I will follow this lead with the evidence we've collected in our next video.